NAIA football is the true version of what college football is supposed to be. And it is the best classroom experience an 18 to 22-year-old male can have. One of the most valuable parts of a college education is that experience. It's life in a microcosm, and it's just something special for a young man to have to experience.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
Welcome in to the Victory Sports Network. I'm your host, Jason Dannelly, and this is NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley, Selection Show Edition. That's right, folks. It is Selection Sunday in NAIA football, and within 30 minutes, we will know the 20 qualifiers that are going to be making it into the NAIA Championship Series. We already know who some of them are via conference championships and a few good guesses at who some of those at-large bids will be. So we're going to go through all of that along with recapping some of this weekend's games in this first half hour before we get to the top of the hour and that 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time announcement coming from the NAIA National Office on the teams that will be making it into the NAIA Championship Series. Don't forget, folks, we are live on several platforms. We're on YouTube, we're on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We're on Facebook and we're on Instagram. We'll have the chat open. If you've got questions, we're going to answer those as we get through the show here and we get the information out. As we get things going, I want to introduce the co-host of this show, my good friend, Mr. Pat Donley. Pat, buddy, here we go. This is fun. This is like what we play for. This is why we're here.
It's the most wonderful time of the year is what it is, Jason. I hear Christmas music on the radio.
Yeah.
No, this is the greatest time of the year right now.
Yes. Play me the NAIA football theme song, baby. I don't know what it is, but we'll figure it out. Hey, so we know we're getting some new viewers. There's some people that maybe haven't checked out NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley over the last year. Just a quick rundown of who we are. I've spent 22 years covering NAIA football. I'm the founder of the Victory Sports Network. I spent about 10 years away from VSN doing other NAIA and small college sports related activities. Came back last year in October as the owner, and hey, it's been all flowers ever since, right? Something like that. I'm also the selector of the Remington Award for the small college centers for the FCS Division II, Division III, and NAIA levels, and I've been a 25-year member of the Football Writers Association. The co-host, the guy that actually knows NAIA football like the back of his hand, is Pat Donley. He's former offensive coordinator for the University of St. Francis in Fort Wayne, Indiana. 20 years coaching NAIA football, NAIA Offensive Coordinator of the Year, and a two-time national championship coach. Pat, sorry to embarrass you there with all the accolades, but
well, I would say I'm blushing, but I'm always red. So
yes, this is true. But just to kind of give a little background as to why we're the guys that are here covering NAIA football. We absolutely love this level of football. Pat and I had these conversations forever behind the scenes, and it's just fun now that we actually have the technology for him to be in Fort Wayne and me to be in Fargo, North Dakota, talking about NAIA football. It's fantastic, man.
It's special. We've certainly, this has been your passion project for so long. I was literally born into the NAIA. I'm not joking. Folks that may not be familiar with our show. But yeah, this is a great affiliation, wonderful level of football. We're passionate about it, and this is the greatest time of the year. And we're about to find out some big news here shortly. And of course, we've got some things to discuss prior.
Yes, we do. We got to get through a few things. First of all, we want to say thanks to one of our sponsors in Huddle. Huddle allows us a direct exchange account, which gives NAIA football teams the ability to send us game film each and every week. That means this weekend we were checking out some of the biggest games, not only live, but then after the fact, maybe get a little bit more information on those games. Huddle has been a game changer for us, and we absolutely love the product and love what they do for NAIA teams. I know, Pat, you spent years as an assistant coach, and I know you would probably run circles around me in Huddle the way that I watch games.
I've watched many hours of Huddle film, but yes, it's kind of being away from it now 3 seasons, getting back into it with the Huddle app. A lot of fun. And I'd tell you what, like we said before, many, many times, it is truly a game changer, allowing us to view these games, the coaches all 22, to provide analysis. It is fantastic. Thank you, Huddle.
For those of you joining us, 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Pat, I always forget you're over there in that Eastern Time zone. us central time zoners and our, the way we think everything should revolve around us. But coming up at the top of the hour, everyone, the announcement from the NAIA National Office for the pairings. We will have those here on the show as they happen. So we'll be going through those. But first, we want to check out a couple games from this weekend, games that had meaningful outcomes to the NAIA postseason. The first one we want to talk about, Montana Tech and Carroll. 42-14, Montana Tech ends up running away with this one after getting down 7-0 very early on in this game. Lander Smith, 33 carries, 170 yards, 4 touchdowns. Big boy got in the end zone. He ran some people over in this game. And Montana Tech, after they got over those opening jitters, man, they were able to kind of blow through Carroll and probably blow Carroll's opportunity to make it into the NAIA Championship Series clear out of the water.
Yeah, Carroll's had a wonderful season. And the start of this game, like clockwork, went down, marched down the field, got a score. And then it was Montana Tech's game plan taking over, and it's Lander Smith. Has any player in the NAIA carried the ball more than Lander Smith? My goodness. 30-plus carries seems like every week.
Yeah, he has been a workhorse for Tech, not just this year, but last year too. And, he got banged up a little last year. I think that hurt them in the playoffs for all intents and purposes. With this performance, I think you'd say that he's pretty healthy going in. And, as we get into it, they're going to have a bye week and allow that physical football team to get healed up a little bit. We go on to the other game that had postseason implications, not in the same way that the Montana Tech Carroll game did, but it shakes things up a little bit. St. Francis, who wins the Mid-States Football Association Midwest, actually co-champions with Marion. St. Francis gets the tiebreaker. They are still in the NAIA Championship Series. They'll still be in the postseason, but they lose this game 39-31 to Olivet Nazarene. Evan Leake, 14 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. St. Francis is still in, but as you can see, Pat, they're rated 18. They're right teetering on that edge of, hey, could they host in this opening round? This loss probably tumbles them back a little bit, maybe even knocks them back in that final ARC rating that was constructed today. And they could be going on the road, and it could have opened the door possibly for somebody like Concordia, for Dordt, to potentially make the NAIA postseason.
No, I think there's huge implications like you just mentioned. I will tell you, USF was prepared to host, and I don't see that happening now. And I think it's going to be a long journey. We don't know who it's going to be, but I would assume just from a geographic standpoint of trying to do things that it's going to be a journey. So, and a challenge. St. Francis did not play a very good football game, obviously. I do tip your cap to Olivet. I thought they came out and executed a great game plan. There was purpose to what they were trying to do, to play spoiler to some level. Even though St. Francis, essentially won the league even before the game started. But this has got to be an eye-opening experience, something to be very aware of if you're St. Francis, that you can't just show up and punch the clock and get a victory. I'm not so sure they had any chance of winning a first-round game if they had the approach that they did yesterday. I mean, I think this is something they can learn from and give them, kind of, again, a recentering, if you will, to go compete next Saturday on the road, most likely. So this is a good roster. We've talked about them so much. Obviously, I'm close to the situation, but it was a disappointing loss, certainly. And this is, something maybe wake these guys up to get ready to compete at a very high level next week.
Yeah, and credit to Olivet Nazarene, Pat. I mean, here's a team that lost the previous week. That was the end of their chance of possibly making the postseason as a conference champion. They could have laid down and died in this one. They fought through, and that's the thing I love about NAIA football. I think you saw that out of some teams yesterday, really battling to the end. I'm going to be honest, if you look at some of the final scores also from yesterday, some teams just laid down and died, and that was the end of their season. Credit to Olivet Nazarene for not taking that approach and getting themselves that one last victory, 6-4. That's a pretty good season. They got to like it. We move on to a couple more games that had postseason implications. The Appalachian Athletic Conference, for those of you that are new here, the Appalachian Athletic Conference had a 3-way tie coming into yesterday's game between Point, Reinhardt, and the University of Pikeville. If all those teams won yesterday, it would be a 3-way tie, and the tiebreaker would have went to who was the highest rated team in the ARC. If you've paid attention to the ARC ratings, there was nobody from the Appalachian Athletic Conference rated in the ARC. So there are some big question marks about what was going to happen. Well, credit to Bluefield. They answered the question for everybody yesterday as Riley Stubbs kicks a 25-yard field goal as time expires, gives the Rams the win, their 5th victory of the year, and that win breaks the 3-way tie, makes it a 2-way tie. Pikeville had the head-to-head over Reinhardt, so the University of Pikeville makes it as the Appalachian Athletic Conference champion. Watch the end of that game. Stones on the Stubbs kid for putting it through.
Absolutely. We talked about Pikeville all year, Jason. We thought they were talented. They played some really tight football games throughout the year. They're probably the best team in that league. So I think, it worked out, I think, for the best. I think, still in the world of Reinhardt. But Pikeville, won that game head-to-head, and they get the automatic qualifier. So it's going to be interesting. They're a talented roster, no doubt.
Probably the biggest shakeup in NAIA football postseason yesterday was the next game we're going to talk about. Southern Oregon going on the road to play a very tough College of Idaho team who had, at the beginning of the year, national championship implications. Could they make it back? They were in the semifinals last year. They ran on some hard times this year, but they played the role of spoiler in this one. Came out with the OT victory, 27-24. Southern Oregon actually outgained College of Idaho in this game. Gunnar Yates had 21 carries for 118 yards. But College of Idaho was able to get 2 picks with 2 big returns on them. And their quarterback in this game, Caden Young, 132 yards on the ground. I think he threw for 118 through the air as well. So credit to the Yotes in this game saying, nope, we're going to finish off our season strong. And they spoil the season potentially for Southern Oregon. Southern Oregon still has an outside chance at an at-large, but it's going to be very tough coming off of this loss to try to convince the National Selection Committee to pick them as an at-large. We'll find that out in about 18 minutes, Pat.
Yeah, look at this conference. Home team again. There you go. Just happened over and over again. This league, such a gauntlet. Every single week there's a marquee matchup, and the home team did have an advantage pretty much the entire year. And we saw so many combinations. I mean, Montana Western, the only team they lost to all year was who, Jason?
Yeah.
Southern Oregon.
Southern Oregon.
Go figure. The conference champion. So that tells you the depth of this league. Probably deserving, in my opinion, 4 teams. I think just looking at the teams, evaluating them on film, seeing them throughout this season, are deserving. And I think are playoff quality from obviously what your history in seeing playoff football at this level, and mine as well. I think 4 are worthy of that. Obviously not going to happen, I don't think. But certainly this is going to be interesting. I think Southern Oregon's a quality team. And again, they beat the conference champion. They have that.
Beat the number 4 team in the country. This brings up a good question as we get ready to transition into talking about some of the teams that have already made it. Justin Clatterbuck asking here, who do you guys think gets left out that is deserving of a spot? And I think, Pat, you just alluded to it there. Southern Oregon is on that edge right now. We don't know. Carroll probably is out. And I think either of those teams, if you put them in this opening round, they probably win a game. They might win a game. I think they're quality opponents that are going to be potentially left out. We don't know this for sure, but I think it's leaning towards them. And another one kind of in that category, unless some crazy things happen today, I think the Marion Knights, they played some really good football down the stretch here. They could potentially be left out. There's about 7 teams on that bubble for 2 spots, and we'll talk about that here in a second. You have any additions there?
Throw one more just because I'm in the regions. Taylor University. I think it's one of the best season that program has had since 1998. I have seen them in person and on film. They are quality. There is no doubt. I think they're very, very similar to a Dort team. I mean, schematically, personnel, the type of team that they have. And I think Dort probably gets in, and I think Taylor's probably on the outside, looking in. But very similar teams. I mean, you could almost, if you change the jersey colors, and you couldn't tell who's different. If you put Dort in purple, it's like, is that Taylor? They look exactly the same. So both, again, Dort and Taylor, I think, are at that level as well as a postseason team.
All right, folks, 15 minutes away from getting that championship announcement. Let's talk about the teams that we know have made it into the NAIA Championship Series. We know Kaiser is in. They're the number 1 team in the nation. They won the Sun Conference. They're 9-0. Kaiser is definitely in. And we'll come back to these slides later on as we kind of break down the matchups and talk about everything. But, Kaiser has done exactly what they needed to do this year, Pat. They've just gone through the conference. They beat a tough St. Thomas team and a tough Southeastern team out of the Sun.
I think it's such a challenge, too, because the target's huge. And there's change up on your roster and your coaching staff. I think you have to commend this program for blocking out all those distractions, all the expectations, and do what they're supposed to do and win football games. And they've been challenged a little bit. The St. Thomas game was a tremendous game. They were challenged with Division II programs and came out unscathed, which is not what's happened before in the past, Jason. They dropped a couple of D2 opponents last year, if you remember, went on to win the national championship. So, is this Kaiser team better than a year ago that was so dominant all the way to the national championship? So time will tell. But I think you have to give this program and this coaching staff tons and tons of credit for what they accomplished this season.
Getting on to the number 2 team that is qualified, Grandview. They get a little bit of a scare early on yesterday from Graceland. They do what Grandview does and just methodically, slowly pulled away and got that victory. Grandview, they've really only been tested one time this year by Benedictine, and that was a game they won by a couple scores, but a good wake-up call for them yesterday against Graceland.
Well, Graceland did a great job early in the game, Jason. You're like you just said, it was very competitive. Graceland moved the ball, even in the run game, which no one runs the ball on Grandview, and they did to some level. So I think that was probably a little wake-up call for them, too. Then you see Grandview, like you said. It's like, wake-up call, okay, we're ready to go here. Let's go play good football. And I saw some good things in their offense as well, throwing the football down the field, some big plays, and that defense, obviously locked in and shut things down, the last 2/3 of that game. But yeah, it was fantastic, to see Grandview be Grandview and be dominant on the defense and, make timely plays offensively.
Want to get to a comment here. Used to be conference champs had to be in the top 25 or they didn't make it. That is actually incorrect. You had to be in the top 20 or you did not make it into the NAIA championship series. So, and I'll get into a diatribe here in a little bit about this whole thing because I've seen some comments out there that I feel like I need to do. I kind of want to plow through the rest of our automatic qualifiers. And everybody that I'm showing here so far will likely have a first round bye. The top 12 teams in the country that are seeded that way will have a bye. Indiana Wesleyan is going to be one. They're 10-1. Their only loss was to FCS non-scholarship Valpo. Pat, we've talked about it. We don't need to bring it up again.
Started a 3-7 Valpo team. Bring that up. Yeah, we're good. It's a good football
Indiana
team.
Wesleyan plowed through the rest of the their NAIA competition, though, this year. So it's going to be interesting to see them get tested in the postseason. Montana Western, a little bit of a scare yesterday from Eastern Oregon, a close one-score victory over the Mountaineers, but they finish up 9-1. They are the Frontier Conference champion. They're number 4 in the country. They have beat the number 8 team, Montana Tech, and they beat the previous number 23 team, Carroll College. They're only lost to that Southern Oregon team that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, great team. You see the balance offensively, just tremendous numbers. It's a good football team in Dillon, Montana.
Morningside wins the GPAC. They've got wins over number 10 Northwestern, number 16 Dort, and number 20 Concordia. They lost to number 9 Benedictine. So this is a Morningside team that first week of the year got tested. They found out that, hey, we've got to make some changes, and they rolled through the GPAC after that. They got a little bit of a push from Northwestern in a 13-7 game, but they found a way to win. That's what good teams do. And Morningside, sitting in that position of potentially having a first-round bye here too, if the seeding goes how we suspect it will.
We assume so, and the most experienced staff out there when it comes to success. 3 national championships, the core of this staff. It's a culture. It's a winning culture. Great group of players and tremendous coaches that are ready for another deep run.
Texas Wesleyan, the Sooner Athletic Conference champion. They run a perfect 10-0. They got challenged early in the year on the road at Ottawa, Arizona, in a game that they won by less than a score. But Texas Wesleyan, outside of that, has just been putting up the points and putting up the yards, man. 59.9 points per game. There's a lot of talk about the Sooner Athletic Conference and, if it's the toughness of it, how deep it is, and it looks really top heavy right now. Hey, you can only play the teams that are on your schedule. Texas Wesleyan did that, and they also beat, which isn't listed on here, at the time early in the season, the Lindsey Wilson team that was rated in the top 25 and then ended up just outside of the top 25.
Well, it's exciting. They're going to host the second round Thanksgiving weekend. They should host after having the bye. It's going to be difficult travel for someone, most likely. And we talk about all the time, how great is it that the state of Florida and Texas is represented in our playoff. And this team is quality. Like you just said, Jason, the Sooner Athletic Conference is what it is. I'm anxious to see this team compete against the rest of the country. I really am. Probably as much as anyone to see this team and see how they stack up. I really am.
Yeah, I have watched quite a bit of film on Texas Wesleyan. They got a lot of speed. I want to see what they do. Benedictine, they end up being the Hart South winner. There was a three-way tie for the championship. So actually there's tri-champions, but the tiebreaker goes to the team that is highest rated in the NAIA football coaches top 25. Unless something super screwy happened today in the top 25, which we haven't seen yet, it will be Benedictine. And regardless, Benedictine will get an at-large if something super screwy happens there. But I don't think it will. I think Benedictine is in as the Hart South champion.
Good football team, deserving, no question.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they draw out of that once again to the second round. Georgetown, 8-2, a lot of close games this year. You look at the offensive and defensive scoring, they only won by about one touchdown in all those games, but they rattled off 8 wins. They beat Pikeville, who's going to be in the NAIA postseason, and number 25 Campbellsville. They lost to Montana Tech on the road the opening week of the year, and they lost to an FCS team in Alabama A&M.
Yeah, they're tested. There's no question. Coach Oliver's done a great job in finding ways to win. They don't ask how, Jason. They ask how many, right? And the Tigers are 8-2. Tigers are 8-2, absolutely deserving, and won the league, and will be in the postseason.
The last I checked, you only got to win by one.
That's it.
Dickinson State, they're going to make the NAIA postseason as the final champion in the history of the NSAA conference. They get the championship, they get the automatic, and based on how the ratings were, they'll be playing in the first round, but they should be hosting in the first round. And with 14 conference championships in the last 20 years, they have not hosted a NAIA championship series game since 2004. Wow. So Dickinson has gone on the road every year they've been in the postseason since 2004. They've got a chance to potentially host this year. I'd like to see it happen. That 2004 game, they played Carroll College. I was at it. It was cold. There was a lot of snow.
And you love this venue. You were there for the opening week, wasn't it? I think
opening week when they played Rocky Mountain.
Yeah. Be cool to see them host. They're deserving of it, certainly.
Friends University, they win the KCAC Kessinger division, so they are going to be in automatically as well with the 10-1 record. Hey, this is an option football team that I would not want to get in the first round, Pat. This is a horrible matchup for somebody to get because these guys run option better than anybody in the country, and nobody runs it the way that they do. Kind of have that double wing flex bone set. It'll be interesting, man.
I will tell you another challenge with that. If a team has to travel from distance, that's an extra, essentially, or less day to prepare for this system, which is challenging enough with a full week. And if you have a short week, you got to leave a day early. Potentially, that's even tougher. So, Friends is a challenge, no question, and it's going to be interesting to see who they get. Probably most likely Thanksgiving weekend. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yes. We go on to the winner of the Mid-States Football Association, MSFA Midwest. There we go. St. Francis of Indiana, 8-3. They are co-champions with Marion. The head-to-head goes to St. Francis. So St. Francis gets the automatic, and Marion is still waiting to see if they could potentially get an at-large. We'll know that in about 6 minutes, Pat. But St. Francis, we talked about them earlier. Hey, they're in. Not exactly the way they wanted to get in, but they're in.
A wake-up call yesterday, like we said earlier. They have a great roster. They've got a national championship, multi-national championship coach and members of the staff that have been around that have won national championships. And they got a great quarterback. I think top 3 quarterback in this playoff is on the USF roster. Josh Kulka should be the West Player of the Year in the Mid-States Football Association. And you got a quarterback, you got a chance, and they certainly have one.
Kansas Wesleyan wins the KCAC Bissell division with a 7-4 record. Early on, things weren't looking good for Kansas Wesleyan. They actually have an interim head coaching staff that is running things after some changes earlier in the year. Probably one of the first times that we've seen that in the NAIA Championship Series. But Kansas Wesleyan wins their division. They get in with a 7-4 record.
Yeah. Traditional power. They've been so good for so long, the last decade or more. Getting in, and again, you said, tip your cap to a staff that's not real sure what's going on, and then hopefully, them in the postseason here to make that staff, full time and make it official. They stay on because it's a good football team. They deserve being in the postseason, winning the conference, and again, you have to tip your cap in that situation to be able to fight through that and have a great season, 7-4 year.
U Pike going to make it out of the Appalachian Athletic Conference 5-5. Hey, these guys can put up points and they can run the ball and throw the ball pretty well on offense. Problem is they give up a lot of yards too. 403 yards per game. They are the champion. They beat Reinhardt. That was their key win this year to win the conference championship with the two-way tie. They have played Georgetown and Campbellsville. One of those two is in the postseason. Campbellsville waiting to see if they could potentially get an at-large. U Pike, man, we watched them a bunch early in the season when they started 0-4, and it's like, God, these guys are a couple plays away from being 4-0. So they end up making it in.
No question. And there's no boring games with U Pike. I mean, they are fun to watch. There's speed, there's talent, there's good quarterback play. Pretty good balance, run and pass offensive, which I'm an offensive guy. I love watching them throw it around. And they're going to be a challenge for anyone that has to play them in round one.
We've got some at-larges, and I don't want to go through all of these because they're not for sure. We'll get to the first one. They're for sure. Number 5 team in the country, St. Thomas. They're going to make it in. They'll have a first-round bye. They end up second in the Sun Conference. They lost to Kaiser this year. They beat Southeastern. St. Thomas got a lot of talent down there.
Such a good team, such good balance offensively. They've got great personnel on defense. They can win multiple ways, Jason, because of the type of players that they have and the balance in their system and what they can do. Very impressed with them. I think they're a top 5 team. I think the Raiders have it correctly that's where they are. And they are definitely, in my opinion, the top at-large seed, without question.
Another team that's going to be in is going to be Montana Tech with their victory yesterday. They're going to stay rated in the top 10, 9-2. Their losses this year to the number 4 team, and then College of Idaho on the road. They beat Georgetown, they beat Carroll, and they beat Southern Oregon. And we talked about it in the open, Pat. Like this is a juggernaut of a team.
No question. I think they're great in Butte. They're so good at home. You saw it yesterday. I thought they were so physical and just an all-around good team win yesterday. And they're really tough to deal with at home. You saw the Georgetown game early in the year. What a great environment. Football matters in Butte, Montana. And Montana Tech is a good football team that with the run game and defense that they have, not only at home, they can travel well as well with that type of team that they have.
Yeah, 100%. Talking more about let's do one more at large. I want to answer some questions, and then the live stream of the announcement is going to be happening here in a second. Northwestern, they had some shaky ground that they were on there for a while, but they pulled through, beating Dort. Even though it was a 3-0 game, was huge for them because that gave them a top 25 win. They lost to Morningside. They lost to Concordia earlier in the year. Northwestern, given where they're at in the ratings, I would say that they are in as an at-large. Again, crazy things can happen, but I think the Red Raiders are in.
I think so, with the tradition as well and what they've accomplished the last handful of years. They're a national championship team. All the core guys, especially on defense. It's kind of changed, Jason, with this team being such a huge juggernaut offensively the last few years in their national championship runs. They're leaning on their defense now, without question. I mean, you can see they're giving up 8 points a game. So they're tremendous on defense, and they're going to lean into that defense and may hopefully make another run from their standpoint that have been so successful, this group, the last handful of years.
Yeah, and we'll get through the rest of the at-larges here in just a little bit. We're kind of waiting for the stream to start to show the selection show, and when that starts, we'll have that going for you here. But one thing I do want to talk about in the NAIA postseason, I see a lot of comments, and I'm looking at the comment about Kansas Wesleyan shouldn't be in. Pikeville shouldn't be in. Hey, guess what? We'll talk more about that because it looks like the stream is up here. So the selection show is up.
This is like the Manning cast.
It is. I guess watch with ads. I guess that's what we have to do. I don't know if you can watch it without ads. Hey, welcome everybody. 6 o'clock, almost on the dot. We'll see if this thing can get going. If anybody else gets the stream going on their end, let me know if something's not working on my side here. So we just have giant black screen right now.
Jason, I don't know if real quick, you are so great at this. You've done such a tremendous job in your predictions and the research you've done with these teams. Can you give like the Cliff Notes version of the playoff system? Now, a lot of people still don't get it. It's only year 2 of it with 20 teams. I don't know if you can give, the shortened version. You obviously are a lot more loquacious than I am when it comes to these things. So,
well, they expanded from 16 teams to 20 teams, and that was last year when they did that. And one of the things was there was underrepresentation in some of the conferences. Some conferences were not able to get their conference champion, into that top 20 ranking. And so there was conferences consistently every year that were getting left out. And, the NSAA was one of those. The KCAC was one of those year over year. The Sooner, was one, even though they were young and they were new. It was tough to get those conference champions, into the NAIA postseason. Why?
No, you're multitasking.
No, I'm just it's the whole, like, this is supposed to start at 6 and it's now 6:01. It's not, it's just spinning like none other. Gotta love it. I'm just seeing if they're, if we go through the backdoor route here again, if we can get it up and going, but it's like just spinning and thinking.
Live broadcasting, folks.
Yeah. You gotta love it.
Your dog's not happy with it either.
No. Frankie's upset. Frankie's probably trying to stream things up there. and we're just waiting for a stream to start here. This is what I love.
Well, yeah. Your tremendous charisma, Jason, has to take over now.
Well, I wish it would, without the frustration of, the launch of a new network that's supposed to be, providing the streaming and everything like that. And we might have something now. Holy cow.
There we go. Hey now.
Finally. Here we go. Battle for the red banner, everybody. Sorry for 2 minutes of pain. Ooh. Somebody worked on graphics. This is good, Pat.
It's good stuff. A little production value here. I'm on board.
All right, let's get to the business. Everybody say hi to Haley.
Are you hearing this, Jason?
Yep. Are you?
No. There we go.
What is going on? What are we doing, NAIA? We're crashing servers. My Lord. Like, what are we, what's happening? It's like, come on. Oh, holy cow. Do we have a press release posted anywhere yet on this before we crash their server again? No, we're just gateway timeout. That's great. That's awesome. What is happening? What is happening? Okay, Baker host U-Pike. Somebody give it to me in the chat, since this is apparently just dying over and over again. What are we doing? Oh my. Folks, thank you for joining us. This is the NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley show. We're trying to get the stream going for the NAIA Championship Series to see who's going to make the postseason. But 5:04 gateway timeout, that's the old server crashing. So if anybody else is hearing anything, let me know. Coaches, you have my cell phone number. If you know who you're playing, like let us know. Oh, maybe we might be back, Pat. We might be back.
Pikeville Baker's an interesting one though, Jason. I like to hear that one. That's
I like
cool.
to hear that. I kind of want to see it officially. Dickinson State hosts Kansas Wesleyan. That's what's being thrown in the chat right now. What are we doing? What is happening here? Pat, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not a tech guy, brother. So talk to.
Well, just, if we're crashing the network on an announcement, that's not great. And still seeing if we've got a rating posted, or if we've got if they've just posted the bracket for us to talk about. We'd like to watch this with you, everybody, but as you can see, we are still loading. It's almost like Netflix from Friday night. There you go. Somebody tried to watch the Tyson fight.
Well, that was fun.
Yes, OUAZ hosted by friends in Kansas is what's being said in the chat. Again, I would like for this to be official information. I do appreciate everybody getting it to us, but holy cow. Back to the 504 bracket. Here we go. Now, I had my predictions, and I did have Ottawa, Arizona in. I had them playing friends, actually, too, in my bracket. So, if that came true, that's good. Baker, if Baker is hosting Pikeville, that means Baker ended up as the 13 seed, and Mid-American Nazarene ended up on the 12 seed. So I tell you, Pat, this is a frustration that I've had ongoing with anybody that tries to stream anything and they use a secondary service that's not like YouTube, Twitter, whatever.
Right.
It goes like
one
this.
you've never heard of, like this one.
And this will be hosting championships in the future. So we're just kind of waiting here. And apologies to everybody that we don't have this up. If you're able to get it up at home, hear it in the chat. No Dort or Concordia. Troy, whoever you are, man, you've got the inside track. I did see same everywhere. So hey, NAI, somebody. I mean, you've got my email address. Have we sent out a comms on the actual bracket yet? No, nothing yet.
I am checking X now to see if any teams are posting, Jason.
Yes.
I don't know if they're going to be or not. We have to Plan B and Plan C.
And Plan F.
And
I could just start calling coaches right now too.
You could do that. I can make a few texts as well.
Is it on YouTube, VS? Answer me that. Is it actually on the NAI YouTube right now? Thank you, Daniel Shepard. Oh, let's just find the old NAIA page and get her brought up here. Live broadcast. Nothing there. Videos. NAI football selection show. My Lord.
Live on YouTube.
That took way too much effort.
Yep, there we go. And don't have sound, Jason, to let you know if there is sound right now.
No audio on you guys' end?
Nope.
Well, I'll do my best to go through everything here. Sorry, we're fast forwarding through that, Haley. We already got the first minute. Automatic qualifier talk. Conference champions make it. Here we go. I'm going to be doing some updating here too.
Kind of the standard here. No surprises, obviously, with these two.
So you can't hear the audio out there, but I can hear the audio, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, we've at least got this. Grandview is up, number 2 seed. As we talked about, 3 seed Indiana Wesleyan, not a shock there.
Nope. We'll truly do like a Manning cast. We're just gonna talk over the
just
graphics.
Keep talking right over it.
The action here, yeah.
I gotta mute it so I can actually hear you, but I threw up the closed captioning. Should I leave that on, Pat, or get rid of it?
Your call. Unless you feel
we'll take
like,
it off.
Yeah, being the commentator.
We can talk about it. Okay, Montana Western, we knew they'd beat the 4 seed, the conference champion out of the Frontier. We've gone through this. Some interesting statistics of first downs. Do you track first downs?
No, not a whole lot. Yards per play is a big one. That is kind of undervalued sometimes in the general stats.
All right, so we go to the 5 seed, St. Thomas. Obviously, they are going to be in the postseason. And as we go through this, I can't use that mouse. I have to use the mouse on my other computer. I have 2 computers sitting here, and I'm trying to update one slide so that we can have a clean sheet to look at here at the end of the broadcast. And everyone, just so you know, we'll go through this whole thing, and then we're going to give some analysis, get into questions about everything. Morningside in, pretty straightforward there. We knew that. We'll give some analysis of the picks. We'll answer your questions. We'll get everything going. So just bear with us as we get through the selection part of the show here, which is going to be 7 more minutes. So I would fast forward because some of these I know, but I want to give every team their due as we kind of get through this. And a big ups to Mr. Daniel Shepard for saying it was on YouTube there. Shepard is a writer in Montana. Helena, Independent Record, does a great job covering Montana Tech. Hey, good drop in there. Covering Carroll College, but also covering Montana Tech and the entire region there. Got questions about how did Concordia or Dort not make it in? We'll answer those questions here in just a little bit. Texas Wesleyan, no surprise they're in. They're going to get that first round bye and likely will be hosting then, Pat, in the quarterfinals.
Talked about that. It's going to be good travel and to Fort Worth, and what a great thing for this program. This program that is on the rise without question.
Texas Wesleyan, lots of speed there too. I mean, that's going to be a tough one. Benedictine making it in. So congratulations to the Ravens. Again, a perennial visitor to the NAIA Championship Series. And if you go to the Wayback Machine, wasn't it, did you guys get them in a national championship game?
No, Morningside did in 2018.
Gotcha.
That's the year after us. Yeah, we lost to Morningside in the semifinals in overtime in the blizzard in Sioux City, and they played Benedictine that year. And a tight football game. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Georgetown getting a first round bye here and everything. And, the Tigers, like we mentioned, they only scoring 1 touchdown more than what they need to win their games this year. So Red Raiders getting the
Yeah.
11 seed, it sounds like.
I was going to ask you, Jason, where we are. This is the 11th seed.
Yep.
Okay.
So we should be 12, and we should be getting into the actual selections here
Matchups.
momentarily. And number 12 seed, Mid-American Nazarene. Okay, so that's how Baker ends up playing in the first round. They move M&U into that 12 spot. They get the first round bye. And that list that we've seen, everybody, that's the list of everybody that's getting a bye. So it's going to be Kaiser, Grandview, Indiana Wesleyan, Montana Western, St. Thomas, Morningside, Texas Wesleyan, Montana Tech, Benedictine, Northwestern, Georgetown, and Mid-American Nazarene. So now we find out who the remaining at-large selections were. Shifting our focus to first-round matchups. Here we go. Finally. Baldwin City, Kansas. Baker, as mentioned earlier on this chat stream, can I trust people? Can I trust people? Is it Pikeville? Is it Pikeville? Can I trust my listeners and my viewers, Pat?
Anticipation.
Carly Simon.
Right? Oh, boy. Anticipation.
Should I just play this at double speed since you guys can't hear it on that end?
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Pikeville.
That's going to be a good game. I love this matchup.
I like that too. I mean,
I really do.
You've got a great offense in Pikeville going up against a very tough defense in Baker. So if Baker can slow them down, score some points, but then who knows? Pikeville could put up a bunch of points. We'll talk more about that here in just a little bit.
It's going to be a shootout, I think.
All right. Dickinson hosting. Dickinson State is going to be hosting. And I had predicted they were going to play Kansas Wesleyan. The chat was saying it was going to be Kansas Wesleyan. So let's see how it goes.
Well, this, the announcement of the opponent is...
Yes, so now we're waiting for the announcement of the opponent. Just taking way too much time here. I'm letting it play out.
There you go. Kansas
K-Dub.
Dude, you're so good. It's like you're like you've done this before.
Yeah, and so, you know what we're going to do? We're going to kill some of the anticipation here. Southwestern gets in 10-1 record. So how about that? Southwestern makes it into the NAIA Championship Series. One of the predictions that I had is that the NAIA selection committee would look at the two teams that were on the fringe that only had one loss to make it into the postseason. And Southwestern was one of those teams, Pat, with a 10-1 record. There's a bunch of two-loss teams in there, but there was two teams with one loss, Southwestern, and the other one, well, by the way, they're playing St. Francis.
I see that.
You saw that.
I had no idea. I have inside connections there, and I did not know until just now.
They're going to be going to Winfield, Kansas. So then that means Friends will be hosting, and the other one-loss team that was in the at-large category, we're just going to fast forward a little bit here since you guys can't hear it.
There you go.
Ottawa. I missed one, and I even said in my predictions, like, hey, this could go that way. So so Friends is going to be getting Ottawa, Arizona coming to town. All right, I'm going to be honest.
Good for Ottawa, Arizona to get in.
Let's kill that. I'm sorry, everybody. That was more painful than what it needed to be. But server issues and announcement issues. But hey, Pat, you saw the snapshot. I'm going to give you a second to kind of take things for a second so I can get a graphic taken care of here.
Yeah, I mean the first announcement, the first matchup, I'm excited about it. I think Pikeville has a talented roster, great offensively. I'm a big fan of Jules Guard, quarterback at Baker. So I think this is going to be like a shootout type situation with great offenses. I know Baker does have a solid defense, but I'm telling you, this Pikeville crew can run. They can throw the football very, very well. I'm anxious to see the weather. I'm anxious to see that travel's no joke. I can tell you that much. From the eastern part of Kentucky all the way, that direction to my goodness, to which town?
Baldwin City,
Baldwin
Kansas.
City. Yeah, thank you. Baldwin City. It's Kansas City area. That's a hike. So I think that's going to be a challenge as well. But I think this is going to be, just at a glance, Jason, I think this is the most exciting game. I think we'll see, just from an offensive standpoint. At least I think so, from watching these teams throughout the year. Just at a glance. So I'm looking forward to that, with some really, really great offensive talent on both sides. The battle of the orange and black teams. So it's going to be, going to be pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's a great matchup. Looking forward to that one for sure.
100%. I'm getting out of my other studio here, and do I gotta stay in that studio? Yep, I gotta stay in that studio, unfortunately. Okay, got to come back, and then I have to try to not pay attention to this other computer that I've got going over here, that will completely and utterly distract me, but it does allow me to put a graphic up on the screen here.
Jason, I'm leaning on you a lot with the KCAC. Tell me about what you think Southwestern St. Francis.
So Southwestern St. Francis, you've got Southwestern with a real quality defense. They've done a very good job this year limiting teams. We'll go through their slide here in a second, but their offense is very balanced. They can run it, they can throw it a little bit. Southwestern's a tough team, only with one loss. So with that said, Pat, one thing I want to do. Okay. That's so much easier. Now let's talk about this. Oh, the joys of live television or something.
Live television is no joke, my friend. You did wonderful. I'm amazed in your predictions, how accurate you were. You were so good at this. Like, you've done it a few times or something.
I missed one team. I missed Southwestern. And I did say in the prediction article that I thought there was a path that the NAIA selection committee would look at it and say, there's so many 2-loss teams and a couple 3-loss teams we're considering, but there's 2 teams with 1 loss that are both right there. Do they deserve to make it into the postseason? I can't argue that choice. I think Southwestern and Ottawa, if that's your mentality, you're going with 1-loss teams there. They are deserving of the postseason, and that leaves Concordia out, that leaves Dort out, that leaves a bunch of teams out that we'll get to here in a second. So everybody, thank you for being a part of this broadcast and getting through the last 20 minutes or so with us. Now we can actually talk about what's happening in the NAIA postseason. So let's just start with the first round games, Pat. Upper left corner, Kansas Wesleyan is going to be going to Dickinson State. It's about a 12-hour trip, pretty much straight up 281 and across 94, unless they decide to go across the western edge of South Dakota, which I wouldn't really recommend. You're not going by the Black Hills out there, folks. You're going East River, and that's not great.
Better fill up gas before you hit that area.
100%. But I think this is a good matchup for Dickinson in the first round. Dickinson really hasn't been tested in the last couple weeks. Like, they had a close game against Jamestown, and I really feel like they were sleepwalking through some of the season with some of their opponents that they had. I mean, they were just going to win those games, Pat. But at the end of the day, they're 9-1 and a conference champion. They're going to get another conference champion. K-Dub's been playing good football, so it'll be very interesting to see this matchup. And if Dickinson gets a first round win, you probably see him going someplace in Montana. If Kansas Wesleyan gets his first round win, you probably see them going to the Hart Conference.
Mm-hmm, no doubt. Your evaluation, you've seen Dickinson up close. You saw him in person. Physical football team, we know. What do you think this matchup's going to look like from an X's and O standpoint? What can people anticipate, you think?
Kansas Wesleyan made their hay the second half of the year here and got their wins running the football. Mm-hmm. Dickinson State's bread and butter is being able to establish the run and run the football. So I think we're going to see a game where 2 teams are going to try to establish the run and get a little play action going off of that. And it's going to be a physical game. I think Dickinson State has got the edge. I think they've got a little more physical offensive and defensive line to get them the win. But Kansas Wesleyan's come on strong here. And if Kansas Wesleyan can run the football, they've got a chance in this game. We'll go down to Southwestern and USF. So USF going on the road to Winfield, Kansas. I guess I'd have to look at the NAIA Championship Series booklet and do a little looking at some of the history. I can't remember the last time Winfield, Kansas hosted a postseason game. It was probably in the Monty Lewis days the first time around, or potentially Dennis Francione, who coached at Southwestern.
That's right. Many years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a 12-hour trip for the Cougars.
Yep.
That's significant. Yeah, the first matchup between the schools, the first game ever in USF football history in the state of Texas. Excuse me, in the state of Kansas. I'm thinking about Texas Wesleyan. First time they've ever played in the state of Kansas, USF football, and been in the playoffs for so many years. So, significant travel. It's a 2-day trip, which I know the Cougars are planning already. A lot of experience with that staff of making that travel. I will tell you, I can't think that Southwestern has seen a quarterback like Josh Kolka in this offense, the offensive weapons that St. Francis has. So I can speak, pretty educated on that football team. They do have balance offensively. I think they have a great defensive line, the Cougars do. So I think it's going to be a challenge for Southwestern. Certainly, I'm not sure they've seen that type of depth up front that the Cougars have. They're great at the edge. Both pass rushers are tremendous. And they've got multiple guys that can do that. A little young in the second, third level for the Cougars. But it's a good roster, Jason. I've said it all along. I think yesterday was, for them an eye-opening experience and kind of a disappointing situation to not host in this playoff. But taking the 12-hour trip is their punishment, and they're going to be angry. I'm telling you right now, they're not going to be happy about doing it. They're going to be ready to play ball. So looking forward to this, obviously. Tell me more about Southwestern. Obviously, I'm not the aficionado you are.
Yeah, so Southwestern, real good quarterback. They can run the football well if they establish the run. Their pass game kind of feeds off of that. But they've got a real versatile quarterback that can sling it and can run the ball with a little bit. Southwestern makes their hay by having a strong defense, and Coach Griffin down there has been a defensive guy, and that's how Southwestern's gotten it done. They're in the playoffs in 2021 and 2022. Looking back through the history, this is the first home playoff game that the Mound Builders have hosted in the postseason since 1998, when they beat Lindenwood 12-10. So Southwestern has not hosted a home playoff game since 1998. So it will be an interesting ball game. We'll get more into the analysis of that here in a little bit.
Question. 5-second question. Yeah. Stupid question.
Yeah.
What's with the logo? The Mound Builders. I don't get it.
It's a whole thing. You'll have to look at the history of Southwestern. So Southwestern is the Mound Builders, but you'll see them called the Jinx. And it goes back to like the 1920s when they were playing a basketball game. And I believe they were losing. I might be switching the story around a little bit, but I believe they were losing, and a black cat ran across the court and jinxed the other team, and they ended up winning. So they were the Mound Builders before that, but they often get called the Jinx. And I think that's the story. Don't 100% quote me on it. I know we got Southwestern fans that are probably throwing things at their computer screen right now, or maybe they're going to say, yeah, pretty close. I mean, yeah, it was a cat ran across the basketball court. So
cool.
There you go.
Cool story.
All right. So we've got Baker going to be hosting the University of Pikeville. Pikeville coming from Pikeville, Kentucky. It's about 750 miles to get from Pikeville to Baldwin City to play this game. Hey, if there's one thing that we saw when we were looking through those opening slides, Pat, Pikeville can put up points. They can, run the football. They can throw the football. The problem is they don't stop it very well. They give up 400 yards a game, and Baker's offense with Truman Julesgaard and the rest of the gang there is going to be able to move the football on them. It will be interesting to see how that Baker defense, which is one of the better defenses in NAIA football, how they'll stack up against an offense like Pikeville. I think Baker will handle this game. I think you might come out early and see Pikeville throw some punches at them and maybe get that quick score, but I think Baker will settle in, especially with this being a home game, Pat.
I think from a schematic standpoint, Baker just played a team that's very similar to Mid-American Nazarene. Very, very similar.
Yes.
And their approach, the way they throw the football vertically with the weapons. So I think, Baker has played strong defense throughout the year in the passing game, which I think they're going to get that thrown at him quite a bit, pardon the pun. But Pikeville's going to throw the football and take the ball down the field. They've got great weapons, good quarterback play. I do like this matchup. I think Julesgaard is the wild card here. Can Pikeville stop him? We have seen him, now in the postseason. Baker has unleashed Jules Gard as a runner, which has been a huge part of their success here as of late. I think they were trying to hold him back, Jason. He's such a huge part of what they're doing. Now the design run quarterback run game with him, obviously in the postseason, all bets are off. They're going to unleash their full complement of scheme, and I think Jules Gard is going to be the main factor in this game.
Well, second half against Benedictine, Jules Gard got banged up. I don't know if he played the second half or if he was out for a while in the second half, and he's got banged up a couple times this year. So I think maybe holding him back a little bit and trying to keep him healthy for the postseason is something that will be definitely, beneficial to them. I'm doing one thing here real quick because I've noticed in my hurriedness to get my graphic up and going. There is a random Southeastern University fire logo on the middle of the screen. So, folks, when I was making this, I put all the logos on one page and I was pulling them off and deleting them and everything. And I frankly, I forgot to pull that off and I just fixed it. I saw it in the chat like, what's SEU doing on there? Unfortunately, SEU was left out of the postseason, but they were one of the teams that I was thinking might have an at-large. So I had everybody's logos and records ready there. So my bad, folks. Screw up occasionally. So there you go. The last one in the first round, Ottawa, Arizona, going to Wichita, Kansas to take on 10-1 Friends. I'm excited for this game, Pat, because Ottawa has a lot of speed. They've got a really solid defensive front. I know they haven't seen the option like Friends has ran it, but I believe there are some teams, in the Sooner that do run versions of that offense. So it will be very, very interesting to see how these two teams match up. You got Ottawa with a lot of speed, and you got Friends that's going to throw the option out there a little bit and come at you from all sorts of different directions.
And I think the key thing too on this, it's going to be more of a traditional away game in that it's going to be a flight. I think the only flight of the first round, it seems like, Jason, it's over 1,000 miles, 15 hours and 40 minutes in a bus. So I don't envision that happening. I would assume this is a charter situation.
Yeah, I would 100%.
So I hope so. There's a lot of other games that are 11 and 12 hours. The previous three are. This is a flight, and I think it's a huge advantage for Ottawa, Arizona. Getting to leave on a Friday. I think that's absolutely huge. Playing a team like Friends, that it's option football, it's assignment football, that they have to really get into dotting the I's and crossing T's of how they want to go about preparing for that, and again duplicating so they can be in their home facility as long as they possibly can until Friday, until a normal travel day for an away game. So I think that's a huge advantage for Ottawa, Arizona. But still, you got to go stop it. And Friends has been a juggernaut in the run game with that system all year, really the last 2 years. And that's going to be a fun game. These are great matchups, Jason. I wasn't sure how it was all going to shake up. I was kind of going off your predictions. Now we're seeing it. I think there's some really good games here. And I do think, and I go back to last year to watch our playoff analysis. We talk about travel a lot. We really do. And I don't want to beat a dead horse on that. But, folks, it is significant. You're bringing a party of nearly 100 people, 12, 13 hours across the country. There's a lot of planning. There's a ton of distractions. You're getting out of your normal routine. And by my calculations, Jason, of these matchups, these four matchups, three of them are of significance 2-day travel from what I'm looking at. And you gotta be a great staff that knows what they're doing, dotting I's and crossing T's in your preparation, because it is a huge factor and a huge distraction. This is not normal for many of these teams. I can tell you here in the Midwest, St. Francis's furthest game this season is to the Chicagoland area, 3 hours away. They don't play far away. It's just the way it is. And I think it's common. It's not like the Frontier. The Frontier, they travel all the time. That's pretty common. That's commonplace for them. So I think the travel is a big deal, and how people plan for it, how they adjust to the distractions and go prepare and play well when the ball's kicked off is absolutely crucial.
I want to get to a couple quick comments here. There's a lot of people saying, how's the Kessinger get in, or how's the KCAC get in? David Tolley, Sports Information Director, Marketing Extraordinaire for Kansas Wesleyan, checking in. Friends and Southwestern are in the Kessinger division. Kansas Wesleyan is in the Bissell division. And Friends and Southwestern tied the division 4-1. Friends gets the auto bid to get into the postseason. That's how Friends is in. Southwestern gets in as the at-large. The two played one another, earlier this year. Friends blocked the field goal, ran it back as time expired to win that ball game. So we appreciate the dignitaries of the world of NAIA sports information checking in here. I've known Tolley for a long time. By the way, Tolley, you hopefully you get to go to Dickinson. You will have a good time up there, and you should not have any press box situations. They have a wonderful press box and a outstanding facility up there. So
pretty
Kansas
good spread
Wesleyan,
too, right? Good food, you said.
Yes.
Good food.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, press box food.
Oh yeah, and
Huge.
I've got some recommendations. Anybody from Kansas Wesleyan that's going to Dickinson, it's like, oh, where do we do? Where do we stay? Reach out to your boy Dannelly. I will give you some recommendations for Dickinson, North Dakota. You might be looking at. I know some people look at this, go, Dickinson, North Dakota, man, that's in the middle of anywhere. Dickinson's a fun town, man. You Kansas Wesleyan, your fans, you will have a nice time, a good time going to Dickinson. I can give you a whole itinerary. Just tell me how many days you're going to be there. I don't work part-time for the North Dakota travel and tourism department. I'm just saying, I just live here.
Tourism Bureau there. There you go.
And by the way, I won't be going to that game. That is 5 hours from me, and I've got a Thanksgiving next weekend. So we do have we've got a lot of questions, in the chat. I would like to, try to get to him. Tolley's got home basketball against Oklahoma Wesleyan. He won't be able to make it. So glaring things, and folks, if you've asked a question and you want me to answer it, put it again in the chat, because there's been so many, I haven't been able to get to them, and there's been a lot of bickering and fighting in the chat, and I'm not going to get to that part. So the glaring thing that you look at here, there was an opportunity, Pat, that I thought we could potentially see 4 teams from the GPAC. There was potential that we could see 4 teams from the Frontier, one or the other. We see none of those scenarios. We only see 2 teams from the GPAC, and we see 2 teams from the Frontier Athletic Conference. And I really think, and I'm not, kissing people's butts here when I say this, but I applaud the NAIA selection committee and what they did with the postseason here. The NAIA postseason and how things are configured has changed tremendously in the last 2 years. And we're expanded to 20 teams to make sure there's conference representation happening all the way around the NAIA. And I can see it in the chat. How's a 5-5 team in there? How's a 7-4 team in there? Just because they're conference champion, they shouldn't be in. Folks, I will take you back to 20 years ago and 15 years ago. There was a lot of good NAIA football teams that didn't make the postseason, and didn't make the postseason consistently. Even with them being conference champions, they got left out. And you know what those administrations did? They left the NAIA and they went Division II, they went Division III. What the NAIA has done here is they have given strength to the conferences, and they have given every conference in the NAIA an ability to say, our best team will make the postseason no matter what. Now, on the other side of the country, you might not like to hear that. But me as an NAIA guy, looking for the strength and the growth of the NAIA, you need that. You've got to have all the conferences represented in the postseason. That's why they expanded to 20. If you go back to years where you had to be rated in the top 20 and be a conference champion to get an automatic, there's a bunch of teams on here that wouldn't make the postseason, and a bunch of those at-larges that you see down below, they wouldn't make it either. So the expansion to 20 is better for the NAIA. It's more representative of what we have all the way across the country. And I'll tell you what, there's going to come a time where people are pointing at a 5-5. How are they in there? 7-4. How are they? Wait till they win one of those games. And all of a sudden it'll be like, well, they shouldn't have been in there. Well, no, they should be in there because they're the conference champion. That's me getting off my soapbox, Pat.
You hit the nail on the head, because you said it in, I was kind of prompting you to talk about, the round of with 20 teams getting in. It's a totally different situation. The round 1 scenarios are different than what we've seen. This is year 2 of it. And what you said of having representation with all the conferences is 100% true. And then you gave an example of, okay, this is why it's important. We want to keep this affiliation strong. We want representation from around the country, and look geographically where these teams are. I mean, it is literally coast to coast. nearly. The West Coast is, we had some teams on the fringe, but certainly in the Big Sky country, we've got great representation in towards the Northwest. But this is a great thing to see in that this is a true playoff. Yes, the rules are in place. You win your conference, you're in. That's part of it. This was agreed upon by many folks to make this playoff even stronger. I know you're a fan, Jason. We've talked about it for 2 years now, how great it is. And I think this is going to be a cool thing. And I think these first round games are very competitive. Some interesting storylines with some history and then some travel and things of that nature of who these teams are playing against one another. And it's going to set things up for a really cool round two as well over Thanksgiving weekend. So I think it's a great thing. I'm completely on board because I've been on the other side of that too, Jason, the old way. And you're just hoping it's like we've done all we can, but it's down to where do we end up? Are we in the top 20? We've done everything we possibly can, but you're not real sure. And this is more cut and dry in that you win your league, you're in. I mean, period. Yes. It's very, very simple in that regarding. And we have those at large, but to me, this was, you nailed it. You predicted that. I think 15 years ago, Jason, it's kind of hard, at least those last 4 or 5 who would get in. Because you'd see literally teams unranked or at 25 jump to 18 just to justify, or 18, 19 just to justify to put them in. There's a lot of different things that happened over the years that were, to me, just bizarre to create the field of 16.
Mm-hmm.
This is much more clear cut, and it's very open and say this is what the rules are, and go qualify.
Yeah. So comment, it's not just that the team is 5-5. It's the conference. KCAC has 2 divisions, but they still play each other. And the Bissell is beaten up on the Kessinger. I get what you're saying there because you have a conference with 2 divisions and then everybody plays all their games still against that conference. Now, I do agree that needs to change. I want to see more, and I've been saying this for 20 years and it hasn't happened yet. We need to see more out of conference games, and we need to see, and you're seeing it with the Mid-South Conference and the Sun Conference. You're seeing a partnership happen there. They're going to play non-conference games against one another. We need to see it with the Heart and the KCAC and the GPAC to have some non-conference games played amongst one another there, because 1, it helps us find out the strength of the other conference, and 2, it's just better. You end up not beating up the same 10 teams over and over and over again. The Great Plains Athletic Conference played a couple non-conference games this year. Benedictine played out of conference. Morningside played Benedictine out of conference. Briar Cliff played out of conference. But you look at Midland played out of conference. But you look at Dort, you look at Concordia. I don't believe they played any out-of-conference games, and I would like to see that. Now, it's tough when you have, 10 games that are going to come from your conference. Do you really want to play 11 straight weeks? That's a tough one there. But I do, for the Heart and the KCAC, where you've got 2 divisions now of 6, I'd like to see some crossover games and not just the entire schedule, just be the KCAC. Or be the Heart against one another. I think that'd be better. Let's talk about the top 25 here real quick. That came out, Pat. Final top 25. No movement here, through the top 13 spots. Dickinson State moves up to 14 there. Ottawa, Arizona moves up 2 spots to 15. Southeastern goes to 16. Concordia moves up to 19. Dort, then Friends and Southwestern end up tied at 19. Campbellsville jumps up to 21. Taylor comes in at 22. Southern Oregon drops to 22. Marion to 24. And St. Francis at 25. Now, old way of the playoffs, 16 teams. Well, St. Francis doesn't make the postseason. Pikeville doesn't make the postseason. Kansas Wesleyan doesn't make the postseason. So then we'd only have 13 spots. Then we would have 13 spots, now down to 10, going to the conference champions, and then the at-larges after that. Mm-hmm. And, you start going through what those at-larges, would have looked like. And, you have a little bit different look, but you have 3 conferences that end up not represented in the postseason. I just don't think that's right. That's also why they expanded, to 20 teams. So we're kind of all over where we're going on this show. So I want to kind of get back a little bit to these at-larges real quick and who made it as an at-large to kind of go through them a little bit. So Baker gets in as an at-large. They're going to be playing Pikeville, 9-1 this season, averaged 40 yards a game, 40 points a game, 14.5 on defense, 398 total offense, a good mix of the run and the pass there. Total defense only giving up 275 yards a game. Real strong rushing defense there, and the heart beat up on one another. Mid-American, Nazarene, Benedictine, Baker all trading wins and losses. So Baker, a very tough 13 seed to make it in.
No question. Love to see them host a football game. One of the best venues ever for home games is in Baker, Kansas. Just fantastic. Huge, fan base, and students get behind it. It's going to be a cool setting for this first round game. Looking forward to that. Pikeville's got the big trip, but they're going to bring some firepower offensively, and they're going to challenge Baker. I really believe that. And I want to see, the condition of Jules Guard and if he can be that true dual threat player.
Yeah, let's let me do one thing real quick here. So Pikeville, that's who they're going to be playing. And Pikeville 5-5, we talked about it, putting up 43 points a game, but giving up 403 per game there. So we've already kind of talked about Pikeville, but to give us at least a little bit of an analysis there. Let's do Southwestern here. Tell you what, I made about 30 slides just anticipating who could potentially make the postseason so that we would have this data. So Southwestern 10-1, 43 points per game, 13.5 given up on defense. A good mix of the run and pass, 281 through pass. Total defense, only 226 yards per game, about 100 on the ground, 125 through the air. They did lose to Friends as Friends blocked that field goal last second. Otherwise, otherwise Southwestern would be sitting at 11-0. Of course, if I'm not going to say that. I was going to say something about my uncle and my aunt there, but
yeah, right.
appropriate audience. Yep. Hey, credit to me, by the way, when the stream was buffering and the server was crashing, that these fans out here didn't see like the true side of Jason Dannelly come out with some MFers and CSers and all that.
You did a fine job, my friend. You did a great job.
Remaining professionalism that I have.
100%. The struggles and the challenges of live television, streaming, and relying on technology, which is challenging, and technology that's out of your hands. It's not something that you're handling.
Yes.
Purely on the NAIA. And thank you for the folks to let us know about YouTube, which I'm guessing it's good to see NAIA had the plan B as well to host on the YouTube channel. So yeah, it's a good thing, trying to get through the whole live TV thing.
So Southwestern will play St. Francis. We've kind of seen this slide real quick, but St. Francis good on offense. Giving up some yards on defense there, having to go on the road, maybe not having that extra prep day. I think we're going to see a pretty tight one there between the Cougars and the Mound Builders.
It's going to be interesting, definitely. I would think the Jinx, the Mound Builders, have not seen some players like the Cougars have. There's some real dudes on that team that can play, both offensively and defensively. So they got to travel well and go compete at a high level, but I think it's going to be a good football game.
So Ottawa is going to go to Friends. Ottawa 8-1, 54 points per game. They give up about 20, 545 yards of total offense. That leads the NAIA in total offense per game. Good mix of the run and the pass there. 293 on defense. Their rushing defense, really strong, and that could bode well for them against Friends on the road, because we know Friends likes to run the football.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm anxious to do some more research this week, Jason, watching these teams a little bit closer too, kind of getting prepared for these matchups a little bit more before they happen. But that's the one thing live television, you don't know exactly the matchups. So you can do like your prep work of the matchups. It's purely on your knowledge of what you've seen throughout the years. So I'm looking forward to maybe watch a little bit more film, as these games approach. And I'm anxious to see this option attack and how it's going to look, and how the challenges are going to be for Ottawa, Arizona. Because I don't care what scenario, what level you're playing at, option football takes extra time. It's more preparation. I will tell you, the Spirit coaches are going to be up all hours of the night tonight and tomorrow, most likely, in preparation for this. It's challenging, no question.
Ottawa, no top 25 wins. Getting at large is ridiculous. you can only play the teams on your schedule.
Yeah.
You know? And I will challenge anybody. And I know some people at Ottawa, Arizona. If anybody in the Midwest wants to do a home and home with them, I guarantee they'll say, "Yep, okay, we'll come play. You got to come play us too the next year, but we'll do a home and home with you." So you can only play the teams on your schedule. They lost a close one to Texas Wesleyan. They're going to play Friends. Friends is 10-1. We know Friends runs the football. Like, I could have just left the passing offense off of here. 61 yards per game throwing the ball. They're going to run the option. They're going to run it at you. And it's going to be an interesting matchup, I think, with Ottawa in that first round game.
Yeah, no question. Like you said, I mean, it's a good recruiting tool. Go fly to Arizona. You know, hey, we're going to play in Arizona here the next couple of years. Get it going.
Yes.
Go play them.
I'm going to probably go off on some commenting here in just a little bit. Who else am I missing that we haven't gone through yet? We did Southwestern. I think we've gotten through because we did Dickinson, and we did Kansas Wesleyan already because they were up against one another. Let's pull up K-Dub and Dickinson here real quick again, just because that's going to be a first round matchup. So Kansas Wesleyan, 27 points a game, giving up 20. Like I said, they ran the ball to success the second half of the year, and they were able to, get the wins they needed to become the conference champion there. Losses to two teams that were in the postseason. So 7-4, but 2-year losses to postseason teams. Now, granted, they're on the other side of the conference, and we'll hear that entire argument. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice setup. And then let's just scroll back to Dickinson, their opponent. Dickinson averaging 35, only giving up 15, about 400 on total offense. Good mix of the run and the pass. Their run maybe isn't as strong as what it was a year ago when they made the postseason, but they're still very much, a run the ball, get physical up front football team. So look forward to their matchup with Kansas Wesleyan.
Yep, 2 run-heavy teams. Low-scoring game, I'm guessing, Jason. If I had to put some money on it, I think it's a little lower-scoring game and a physical football game. Great playoff football game. Great playoff atmosphere. Going to be awesome.
So I think we can kind of start getting into a few questions. And one of the questions was, how do they figure out the second round? Well, what's going to happen are the teams that are playing this week, we'll get the results from them, obviously. That goes without saying. But then those spots that win will get reseeded. So basically we'll reseed 13, 14, 15, and 16 will get reseeded out of who wins. And then they will take a look at the full pool again, and then they will put the matchups together from that. So number 1, Kaiser, in theory, would play a 15 or 16 seed. We had Dr. Jesse Gotting on a few weeks ago to talk about that a little bit. And he mentioned, they will reseed it. They want to try to... Lyle, I'll get to your question in a second. Where was I going with that? I get angry at comments. Oh, so they'll reseed it 1 through 16. Right. They want to try to put it 1 and 16, 2 and 15, but they've got to have some regional thoughts with that because of how travel is going to play into this. They don't want to have a whole bunch of flights. So we'll find out on Saturday night how everything is going to go in.
Could get some rematches from the regular season. Could get conference opponents in that second round, the Thanksgiving weekend round, correct? I understand. Pretty much all bets are off when it comes to matchups.
And Lyle, not avoiding the GPAC getting disrespected issue at all. GPAC, yeah, they've sent a team to the final game for a bunch of years in a row. And that was Northwestern and Morningside. Mm-hmm. It's always been Northwestern and Morningside. Before that, it was Sioux Falls. Dort had a good season. Concordia had a good season, tremendous season.
Yep.
Guess what? When Northwestern and Morningside made the championship game all those years, they didn't lose a game in the regular season, or they lost to one another and then somebody made the finals. Good teams do, or good conferences do that. Is the GPAC getting disrespected? You got 2 lost teams in there, and probably the thing that screwed up the GPAC from getting 3 teams in was having 4 competitive teams, because you're asking the selection committee. Concordia beat the number 10 team in the country. They were number 2 at the time, but they lost to the number 16 team in the country. and that number 16 team in the country then lost to the number 10 team in the country, but they only lost 3-0. So you're making the selection committee have to make this decision between two loss teams over here, and then they can look and go, well, wait, we've got 2 1-loss teams. And when you look at the criteria for the NAIA selection committee, the first thing in that primary criteria, and it's not by what's most important, but they look at overall record and win percentage. And a 1-loss team is going to have a higher win percentage than a 2-loss team. It's just the simple facts of it. Do I think the GPAC should have got another team in? In my predictions, I had Concordia making it and Ottawa of Arizona. So no disrespect to the GPAC at all. I thought they would get another one in. They didn't. I respect the committee because they went with the same mentality of we have 2 1-loss teams that are sitting right there in this group to try to make it in. If it was 4 2-loss teams, then we got to try to figure out what it is. But you got 2 1-loss teams to make it in.
I mean, to take it a step further, Jason, look at the Frontier Conference.
Yes. The Frontier Conference had 4 teams that we were talking about all year. And
Jason,
they only got 2 in.
I don't think it's even close. It's the best conference.
No, especially this year.
But that's this year. I'm talking this is an isolated situation. This season, I don't think it's even close. That the 5th best team in that league, I guess was going to be Carroll, I guess, essentially is the 5th team in that league. Am I saying that right? Would it be them? 4th or
Carroll,
5th?
the 5th team?
5th or 4th?
Carroll would be 4th. Carroll, College of Idaho.
College of Idaho. You want to go play College of Idaho? And probably maybe the best player in the NAIA who didn't make the playoffs? Yeah. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, they're that good. Trust Jason and I. We've watched these teams extensively. The Frontier Conference is absolutely no joke. Yeah. In that, I mean, the travel stuff, certainly, and the home teams had an advantage. But, I mean, Georgetown flew to Montana Tech. Montana Tech won that game. You see the other non-conference, Dickinson State, was the battle with Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain was one of the bottom teams. That was a fairly tight game, if I'm not mistaken, Jason. Yep. It's a good quality league, and I think Rocky had 1, 2, or 3 wins, I think, this season. So again, top to bottom, this league is really, really good. And you have, we said, at least 4 deserving from a quality standpoint that have an argument to be a part of the postseason. It just didn't happen. They got 2 in. And I think if any any league had a gripe to get 3 in, to me, it's the Frontier. It's not even close, in my opinion. And I love the GPAC. I mean, I've gone years and years of playing the GPAC schools. Believe me.
I'm a GPAC guy. My team that used to exist I've played in the GPAC technically. Want to get to a question here from Thomas. Indiana Wesleyan schedules a D1 school. Anybody else do that? That's their own loss. Did that keep them out of the top spot? No. What kept them out of the top spot is Kaiser's a defending national champion, didn't lose a game, and Grandview was rated above Indiana Wesleyan to start the season. They didn't lose a game. Like they could have won that game. They'd still be number 3. There's no scenario where I see Indiana Wesleyan leapfrogging to number 1 with those 2 teams continuing to win. Nick, these guys are clueless. Yeah, okay. 20 years doing this, and your team didn't get in, so cool, bud. Sorry. Sitting here watching Dumb and Dumber, but can't describe who. Okay, thanks, Caden. I believe. I love it.
This is great.
I think I would be Lloyd. You'd be Harry.
I don't know.
Do you have a chipped tooth?
No, I don't. Dumb and Dumber. It's great.
I love it. I love it. I love it when conferences or teams don't get a team in, so we're stupid all of a sudden, folks. I put out a bracket. Look at my bracket. Some of the people that are mad, like my bracket answered that. It's and I'll pick on the Frontier Conference. I'm not seeing, by the way, a bunch of Frontier Conference over here beating their chest. I think they knew, hey, we had to win this game to get in. We didn't win. They're going to keep us out. I think there's some conferences that are just right there. They've got some teams on the fringe, and they're not going to be happy with how things turn out if just everybody that's decent in their conference can make the postseason. It's just not going to happen, folks.
It's not going to happen. These are the rules. This is what we're doing.
Where are we getting to? There was a question earlier on if USF Illinois would have beat Marion, if USF Illinois would have made it in. I say no. And then nope, not that question. Then there's a question about opinion on Marion being left out. Marion finished the season strong, but I think they had some games in the middle of their schedule where they weren't real impressive, and that kind of moved them down, in that arc. And
they would have been in if they
right
beat
there.
St. Francis.
Yeah.
Beat St. Francis of Indiana, they're in. That's all there is to it. They did.
Yep.
Lost at
They'd
home.
be 9-1.
You got it.
So, yeah, and it's unfortunate. We're talking about 2 lost teams not making the postseason, and you see a theme here. 2 lost team didn't make it. 2 lost team didn't make it. 3 lost team didn't make it. 1 lost teams took up those last couple at-large spots. It's as simple as that one gets.
I'm going to set myself up for something. I know this, and I don't even care. I hope people come at me. I think it's hilarious. I love it.
I do too.
Rank the conference strengths this year. I'm serious. I mean, like when you get right down to it, rank them. Because I think a couple of them are really, really close. I really do. I think the Frontier is head and shoulders. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I really do.
The Frontier is, and again, not a Frontier guy, but watching them this year, they were 1 and 1A with a bullet, and I don't think there is anybody close to them in the conference.
Who's 2 is the debate. That's a tough one.
Yeah, because I think you can make arguments for a lot. Like,
I agree.
I'll talk about the GPAC. The GPAC, you've got Morningside had a great season when undefeated in the conference. Their only loss was to another conference champion. You had Northwestern that battled through a lot this year and came back to get a first-round bye. You got Concordia and Dordt that were just barely left out of the postseason. They were pretty dang good. You've got Midland with a winning record, and you've got Mount Marty with a winning record. So you've got all those teams above 500. That's pretty good. I think the difference just comes down to, that the quality of where 2, 3, 4, and 5 are at. And I'll pick on Northwestern a little bit. Northwestern, ends up being the higher seed. They end up making it as a first round bye. They beat Dordt 3-0. They only put 7 points up against Morningside, and that looked to be a struggle. There was a few other, and Northwestern lost to Concordia. Now they had some injuries that happened in that game. They've got a freshman quarterback. They're trying to figure things out there a little bit, but ultimately, is the GPAC 2? I don't know, because then you go to the Heart. You look at the Heart South. We got 3 teams, from the Heart South that beat one another up and all have got 1 loss and beat everybody else. Now you can argue, well, they didn't play anybody else. Well, that you can only play your conference. Anybody that wants to talk to their program and make donations to your school so that they can afford to travel out of conference for non-conference games, do it. Do it. I mean, I would love to see it.
I'm a mid-states guy, obviously, my history. And the realignment was goofy this year. It changed things drastically when you think about it. You have, Taylor and St. Francis not in the same division for the first time, like ever. You know what I mean? The East and West. Indiana Wesleyan's in the East with Taylor. Marion and St. Francis go to the West with St. Xavier and St. Francis of Illinois. It's a different shakeup in the way the conferences were realigned East and West. And that certainly would have been different if it was like last year. St. Francis of Indiana is not in that situation, and maybe Taylor is. I mean, that's kind of one of those unique scenarios that could have happened. And I'm going to throw one at you too. And 2 of the teams in the top 5 is the Sun Conference, because I think Southeastern's really darn good too, and they certainly had a gripe as well. The only 2 losses they have are to number 1 and number 5, and they're competitive football games. There's no blowouts here. I mean, they're a good football team.
And that's the thing. If we're looking at 2 lost teams. Sorry, GPAC. I put Southeastern in front of Concordia and Dordt. They lost to number 1 and number 5. I mean, we beat a top 25 team. Well, that also, the reason you beat a top 25 team is because of the respect the GPAC has and the coaches. The coaches are going to look at the best teams in the GPAC. They're going to be rated. So you're going to get wins against rated teams there. The Sun Conference doesn't have that respect yet nationally from the coaches. So you're not Southeastern. It took them until they were 5-1 before they even started receiving votes. And they had to really challenge in some of those games to even get any respect. So,
and I guarantee, Jason, they would make a lot of noise in this tournament.
Yes, 100%.
I truly believe that.
Andrew says, all right, boys, leave good conferences and make awful conferences. Apparently that's how you make the playoffs. Don't play good teams. I mean, conference champions. I have to.
Yeah,
If
sorry.
here's the thing, if you like this level of football, if you like the GPAC being at the NAIA level and being able to play against like-minded institutions, this is what the postseason is going to be. It's 20 teams and conference champions have to make it. If you take that out of there and you go back to 16 and conferences all of a sudden don't have representation in the postseason, you're going to see the teams making the jump to Division II. And sure, go to Division II, look at all the glaring success that the many former NAI football teams have had in oh wait, there hasn't been any. In the last 15 years.
One.
Well, what is it? In the last 20 years, one
Carson
team,
Newman.
Carson Newman, making it to the national championship. Sioux Falls has made the postseason. Azusa Pacific made the postseason. Then they dropped football.
Yeah, think about it. I can think of them.
Northwest Oklahoma State has gone to Division II and become a doormat. But
Yep.
got to have conference representation, and that's what these changes have been for. Oh, rolling through the comments, seeing if there's anything good.
Hate. I love it.
I love the hate.
Me too. It's great.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Campbellsville missing? Great season. Would have loved to see the Fighting Tigers get it. But again, I think you go back to what the selection committee basically stated. They took the one-loss teams in the postseason.
I tell you what, Jason, last week, a couple of egregious mistakes. They beat Georgetown potentially. I mean, it's an overtime game, and there's a couple plays that change that outcome. And certainly, if they're a one-loss team, we're talking about something different.
Just because I like to play, Pat, and I'm a pretty open book on things, I got to throw this comment up here. Don't ask Jason about his background in the GPAC. Folks, my life is an open book. Yeah. I've made mistakes. I have been a giant dummy and have done some really stupid things in my past, which ultimately got me fired from a job. Mm-hmm. I am not proud of it, but I can sit here and tell you today that was probably one of the best things that happened to me, and become a better person out of it. So my history with the GPAC, with one institution in particular, not good. And that's 100% my fault. So,
yep.
Yeah, like, you think you're going to be like, oh, we're going to get a dig in on Jason. Like, seriously, dude, my picture was in the paper with a mug shot. Like, you don't think I'm embarrassed by that? That's why I'm doing this show. Sorry, Pat, I should have had you off the screen for that. So you'd be like,
you're good. You're good.
So
I love you, buddy. You're good.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Here, this is a good one. Why do you think MNU got seated above Baker? That's a tough one to me, because Baker was above them in the top 25 by one spot.
The Benedictine game, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, Mid-America beat Benedictine, who is the higher seed between the two. I mean, they both lost to Benedictine, but Mid-America, Nazarene, like, only lost by one. It's tough, honestly. And I know, like, there's probably a certain part of Baker's fan base that is saying, why didn't we get the bye? We deserved a first round bye. Honestly, I think I sometimes think the best thing is for teams to keep playing. And I said that last week on the show. There's some teams I think would benefit by continuing to play. I think Baker's one of those teams. They keep the rhythm. They keep going. They've got a decent Pikeville team in front of them. They get them at home. If I'm Baker, I want to keep playing. I'm fine with Mid-American Nazarene getting the higher seed. That's my thought, because I think what we could potentially end up seeing happen is a potential rematch there in the heart with Mid-American Benedictine. So
we can see a couple rematches, I think, in round 2. I do.
Yeah.
Some regional stuff.
Important question. Will either of us be traveling week by week to locations for games? No. Sorry. I don't know if you can hear my 16-month-old baby crying in the background. I ain't going to any games.
No, unfortunately. I wish. I'd love to.
I would love it.
Love to take a trip out to Kansas with the Cougars. It's not going to happen. So, we've got families, and our lives have certainly changed. Yours definitely has, as an old man being a dad of a 1-year-old. And I've got an 11 and 9-year-old, active and all kinds of things. And that takes precedent. But we are obviously closely following everything and watch. I'm looking forward to. I get some time to watch these games live. It's kind of nice when we have before. You can watch and kind of streamline things a little bit easier of what the top games are. We're gonna get different start times too, I'm assuming, which will be nice. Well, maybe. I guess most of the Central, aren't they?
Yeah, most of the games are Central.
Yeah. I guess I didn't think about it. They're all in the Central, aren't they? When I say it. Is Dickinson still? Is it the Mountain or is that
the Dickinson is Mountain Time?
Is that Mountain? Okay, good hour.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe 1 hour different from one.
I love these defending the selections instead of trying to fix the system. Hey, open book. Go through the selection manual. You tell us how to fix it, and if your fix is, well, you just take the top 20 best teams. The top 20 best teams from what? The coaches poll? Because then we get all the monkeying around with the coaches poll. If you've got a better system to it. Now, here's the thing. I think there are things in the selection process that do need to be fixed. I think, they had an ARC rating come out Thursday and they re-ranked that ARC. I think before the selections come out, and they used to do this, the top 25 poll would come out before the selections. I think they need to re-rank the ARC today and make that public for us to see. Because then that answers a lot of questions. If a team gets moved up one in the ARC or moved down one in the ARC or where things go, I think the ARC rating for today needs to be public. I do think some of the selection criteria, especially the use of a computer metric, that needs to be fine-tuned, because those computer metrics really rely on strength of schedule and non-conference games. And when you don't have many of those, it skews the metric. So that needs to change. So there's some things in the process that I think need to be tweaked and fine-tuned. But overall, if you go by what the National Selection Committee and the criteria for the postseason, how they're supposed to do this, pretty well on par with all of the research. I mean, I went through for 4 hours last night and put a committee man hat on, and not the Jason Dannelly opinion, because the Jason Dannelly opinion would have Southern Oregon in the postseason, and probably Concordia. But my opinion doesn't matter, as has been evident in the conference or in the comments here. Dumb and Dumber up here. We don't have any bearing on the NAIA Championship Series and how things will be in the postseason.
Slappy Samsonite. I was way off.
Yeah.
1994. I
love it.
Movie in the theater. I was in 8th grade. Hey, real quick here though. I think I've got to give you a
hold on. I love this comment right here.
I can't read.
They should have just picked every team from my conference and randomly picked other schools to fill the slots. #, sarcasm. Thank you, Seth. Yeah.
Good stuff. No, I think to give you more credit, I pump you tires enough. I certainly do. I think your interview with Dr. Gotting was great in that kind of the behind the scenes in the selection process. Those that are, kind of questioning things and scratch your head, this doesn't make any sense. Go back and watch that interview, because I think it's tremendous. Jason did a great job of having someone obviously in the know of kind of the whole thought process and the details behind this. It's not exact science, certainly, but there are rules in place. There are, people putting heads together and making these decisions that I don't know of a better way. I really don't. Unless, like people were saying, just take the top 20 teams. Well, okay, what does that mean? You know what I mean? It's just, it's to me, that's arbitrary as well. I mean, at least you have the conference champions represented. To me, first and foremost, that makes sense. Now, okay, the at-larges, that takes some, some discussion and some opinion involved. At the same time, I think we're getting the country represented. And the conference champions are in. I mean, that's all you need to know. And then from there, it's, there's a selection committee, and that interview is tremendous in getting the behind the scenes details of what that process is. I think it's done very, very well.
No, you've said, like, I did a good job putting all that together. 100% is Dr. Gotting coming on and talking with me, all the coaches behind the scenes that I call and ask questions of. To be honest, last year when we went into this whole process, I had made some assumptions on how things would go, and I was absolutely wrong. And so from that, I just learned more and talked to the people. And like I said, do I think these are the 20 best teams in NAIA football that should be in the postseason? No,
No, I don't either.
I don't. But what we're trying to do is come up with, the most accurate representation of the NAIA postseason. And the other thing is, I'll sit here and I'll take shots from anybody. The NAIA won't. They're not going to have a live stream and let you comment back to them and tell them all the things that they're doing wrong. I'm more than willing to take it.
Sure.
It's more fun than my actual job. I'd rather have everybody tell me I'm terrible at this. Go home. You suck. Whatever it is. Like, I'm fine. This is fun, man. Been doing this for 90. Well, geez, we're almost at 2 hours on the show, Pat. Holy cow.
Get some downtime there.
Yeah. We had a nice little 10-minute break where we all got to stare at a white screen.
Waiting, efforting, waiting.
I won't go any further with that comment on championship streaming in the NAIA.
Right.
Figure it out.
At least they had YouTube.
Yeah. Thankful, and thank you, Daniel Shepard, for making it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a couple texts as well. Thank you, guys.
We got a few more minutes here before we wrap things up. Like I said, going on 2 hours, that's a lot. But yeah.
The games, we're going to get some great matchups. And, obviously it's from the east to the west. A lot of these matchups are from the west to the central part of the country. Some matchups we've never seen before. Going to be fun. It's going to be, I think the NAIA did a great job of, just kind of creating some cool matchups for us to wait and see here in a few days. It'll be fun.
Yeah. And there's a lot of questions in the chat. Who do you think such and such will play in the second round? Who do you think Texas Wesleyan will get? Who do you think Indiana Wesleyan will get? A lot of questions like that. I don't want to get too far into the analysis of that because we've got 4 games that we need to get final scores on here first before we start making those. And it takes away from these teams playing in the first round if we're already trying to guess where things are going next.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you got to do is you got to look regionally and you got to look at some seeds a little bit there. I think, especially like you look at Texas Wesleyan in Fort Worth, mind you, they're in Fort Worth. Do not say they're in Dallas. I heard it this week. That's fine.
The Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Right?
There you go. You go. But they are definitely in Fort Worth. I look at them, and when you've got Ottawa and Friends playing one another, I'd probably lean towards the winner of that one going to Texas Wesleyan to play in the second round. You get into Baker Pikeville. If Baker wins that, you've got some heart rematches that could potentially happen. You've also got to get opponents for teams in the GPAC, and so you got some regional games there. You've got Georgetown, kind of sitting a little bit on an island over there. But when I look at their seed, they're the 11 seed, and Indiana Wesleyan's the 3 seed. I mean, you're pretty close to where that could get matched up there. Hard to say though. Hard to say. And so I don't want to get too far into predicting second round matchups or anything like that. So,
do you think St. Thomas and Kaiser play? Not this early.
What's that again? In
the second round, you think the 2 Florida schools against
1 versus 5 is tough, man.
No question.
I wouldn't like that at all.
No, I wouldn't either.
That'd be terrible. Means you're probably going to have 2 flights into Florida, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other thoughts, Pat, before we wind things down here?
No, it's a bit of a soap opera, right? Of course, it was. We created some suspense with streaming issues, and we got the matchups. It's going to be fun. Going to be a great first week, and we were kind of speculating possible round 2 matchups, but these round 1, I don't know. I think the teams that are traveling are pretty darn good, and I think it's going to be really interesting. I think there's some teams that have had great seasons. They're going to be really tested by these road teams. Certainly in the playoffs, like I've said a million times in shows past, I do think home teams have a distinct advantage, especially in these 2-day trip scenarios. But there's some really good teams traveling, and I think it's going to make these games better. Because it's some really good matchups, and the home teams, have that advantage. But there's a lot of skill, a lot of talent coming your way.
Jordan asking, would it be fair to assume 1 through 4 seeds will play winners of this weekend? It'd be good to assume it, but a lot of it's going to come back to the whole travel scenario and where they're going to move teams and all that, and
Right.
try to avoid flights if possible. But so it might be inevitable that they're going to have to. There's some nightmare scenarios out there. So
Flights are expensive, folks. Charters are expensive, especially in today's day and age. Fuel is not cheap.
I love Hinchman. Hinchman is a regular on the Victory Sports Network
Oh,
website.
everybody gets in.
Expand playoffs to 97 next year. Absolutely, man. You and I will draw it up. It'll be
No,
like
it's real easy.
basketball.
Do you know how you do it? Yeah, it's like basketball. The state of Indiana in high school, everybody makes the playoffs. Ever tell you that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a different deal. So everybody gets in. You could be 0-9 and get in round one and see what happens. So kind of interesting.
Lyle with a good comment here. Hope they don't put conferences against each other until the semis at the soonest, but not a great history on doing that. So in the NAIA Championship Series postseason, there is a rule against matching up teams from the same conference in the first round. That would include everybody in the KCAC. So the KCAC, let's just say in football, this time they've got 3 teams that made the postseason. They are prevented from playing one another. So Southwestern was not going to play Kansas Wesleyan here in the first round. Friends was not going to play Southwestern in the first round. But in the second round is when they'll start to look to have those rematches. And where people will get confused sometimes is they look at the 12 teams that have byes and they think, well, our first game is the first round. No, your first game is the second round.
Mm-hmm.
So though there's a very strong possibility that those 12 teams that have got byes right now could match up against one another and have a conference rematch in the second round. Only prevents it in the first round.
You got it.
Hey, here's one for you, Pat. With CUAA football coming to a close, any favorite memories of that program?
No, because usually involve beating us. But yeah, we talked about it throughout the year. What a shame. And it's a sad deal. And I am rooting for those kids that are looking for other places to play or whatever they decide to do, and the coaching staff as well. Good guys, really smart guys, man. I tell you what, it was a good program for the time that it lasted. I want to say it was like 07 to the present day. It wasn't all that long, maybe 08. No, you know why I say that, Jason? I think it's even less than that. So it wasn't around terribly long, but I tell you what an impact. They were really, really bad initially. I mean, they really took their lumps and got real serious about it, probably a decade or more, 12 years ago maybe or more. Got serious about it and got really, really good. Made some great postseason runs, won the Mid-States Football Association, which is a great football league, as we know. I think the memories, they were a great opponent, classy group, and in a cool city. Ann Arbor, Michigan, there's not many places better than that. And it's an unfortunate situation, and hopefully it's one of those things. Maybe they can come back at some point. We've seen that before. Programs go away for a period of time, then maybe potentially come back. But from memory standpoint, just some great battles we had with them. When I was coaching, and they had some great success and great group of guys. So wish them all the best.
Got another comment here. I've agreed with almost everything you guys have said. Thanks, Cole. Love you, man. That being said, will the tune change if the Frontier gets exposed in the tourney? If they get exposed by teams outside of their conference, yes. And I took a lot of heat last year. I've kind of called out the Frontier. If you go and you read my postseason history article, it talks about the history of all the conferences in the postseason, and specifically how the Frontier Conference historically is one of the best conferences in NAIA football. But if you go the last 5 years, what is it? They've got 2 wins against outside opponents. So they've not had a good recent history. I don't think it takes away from the regular season and how strong that conference is. But, if Montana Western and Montana Tech come out in their second round games, lay eggs and lose, you kind of start saying, all right, they got to get something figured out in that conference. Mm-hmm. And things will change in that conference next year because they'll actually have 2 divisions. So this was the last year of the North Star. A good majority of the teams from the North Star Athletic Association are joining the Frontier. The Frontier will split into 2 divisions. So they'll have the same amount of automatic bids in next year's postseason, but the Frontier will be guaranteed 1-1 for each of their divisions.
It's been a long time since the Carroll dynasty.
Yes.
It's time. It's time for one of these teams, and there's 2 really good ones, in my opinion. Very, very good teams.
Yeah.
And I think, Jason, you hit the nail on the head throughout the year with Montana Western of gaining balance, offensively. They're a team that loves to throw the football, and they do it very, very well, but they are one of the most balanced teams in the country. And I think have shown that this, the last half of the season has really developed that part of their game. And they've got personnel, and they're going to be a tough place to play at and travel that distance. And I think Tech's the same way. I think Tech is a good physical football team that's won some big-time games this year. So I would be shocked if they don't do very, very well. But it's been some time since the Carroll dynasty.
Going back to a good question here from Chad Anderson. Any history on why the expansion was from 16 to 20 teams instead of reducing bye rounds and expanding play to offer 26 or 28 teams? So the NAIA kind of has a postseason metric that they use across all sports, and I believe it's 20%. So they want to have 20% of the total teams that are in that sport represented in the postseason. And the football, when they're at 16, with basically 100 teams, they're at 16%. 97 teams now, 20 teams puts them at that 20%. And Dr. Godding kind of explained that in the interview we had a couple weeks ago. So that's why the expansion is to 20, because if football expands to 24 or 28, then other sports will say, well, we need to expand our postseason then to get to that, 24, 25, 30%. And it waters down, some of those other sports, basketball, baseball, whatever it may be. So as much as people might not like it, and, I love football and I want football to be special, and I think 24 would be a great number. Problem is, we end up having the same argument then about spots 23, 24, 25, and 26 that we're having today about 18, 19, 20, 21. So you think it helps? You just always, there's always another thing on the other side. So yeah. Good question there from Chad.
I have a question for you, Jason. With your history and knowing the NAIA better than I do, I think this new format has eliminated some of those big first-round blowouts.
Yes.
I absolutely do. Folks, if you go back in your history books, go to first-round games from about 2002 on in the round of 16, where every team played who made the postseason, you're talking bloodbaths. I mean, they're just fact. I will tell you, a team I coached won the national championship one year. We scored almost 80 in the first round. Mm-hmm. Almost 80. I coached for teams that 55-0, 55-3. I mean, bad games. And I think this, the bottom of the bracket, these teams that are playing head to head are great matchups. These are good games for us to evaluate and see these teams play and compete. And then the next round, I think you eliminate maybe some of the teams that potentially are imposters. I think that, at least. I know it sounds crazy because we're representing the entire country, but I think things are going to be figured out this weekend. If somebody's quality, they're going to win the game, and they're going to get a chance to play one of these other top teams. So I think that does help. I do. Because go back in the history, folks. I mean, you're talking bad football games in round one, typically.
Yeah.
The ones that were competitive are the bottom, the middle matchups. Like the whatever it was, the 7, 8. I don't know the math on it. Whatever it was. Those are competitive. The other ones were.
I was actually surprised when, not that they expanded to 20, but the way they did the buys, where we have 4 games this round. I thought it would have been, spots 1 through 4, you get the bye, and then the other 16 play one another, because your top 4, they've earned the right, if you will,
sure.
To get that bye. They're going to be potentially hosting for several rounds after that. I was surprised it didn't go that way. I'm fine with how it is. I myself even had a misunderstanding. It was like, 20. So they'll play 16, 4 buys. They'll play in that way. But I was wrong there. And I think the format is fine the way it is. Everything can always be improved, and they'll make improvements to this.
No doubt. No, I think it's great. And I think, like I said, you eliminate a lot of the bad matchups. And they just were. Fact. Sioux Falls never played a close round 1 game. I can guarantee you. The heyday of USF football, when I was a part of it, we had very few close. When we were making our deep runs, we had very few close first round games, if ever.
Let's see. From Caden, don't you think it makes more sense to only 5 or 6 conference champs get automatic bids, make it more like Division I, where bad conference don't get that auto bid? No. No, I mean, I think I've beat the reason. The reason the NAIA exists is for student athletes to be able to participate in college athletics and then have the opportunity to compete for championships. If you start keeping conference champions out of the postseason championships, you're eliminating entire groups of kids from ever having a hope of making it into a national championship scenario like this, the postseason. You know, I looked at it, I believe, what is it? There's 6 or 7 teams in the Appalachian Athletic Conference. The Mid-States Midwest is 6, or is it 7? I think there's 6. So that's 13. There's 6 in the Bissell division. So that's 19. There's 19 schools then out of 97 that would have no representation in the postseason. So I think that means a lot to the NAIA and the future of the postseason, to be able to keep conferences represented and give everybody a chance, because like we said all season, conference championships mean something. In the Appalachian Athletic Conference yesterday, all of a sudden, Bluefield and Point meant something.
No question.
You go back 2 years, that's a completely meaningless game. Nobody cares. Nobody cares at all.
No doubt.
So, I mean,
and the thing is, I think he's trying to compare like the Division I scenario. Now, this is year one of the new playoff system, as we know. We also have power conferences where you've aligned teams coast to coast in one conference. So I think it's a different deal. You know, you're talking about rewarding, top conferences. So
BS, who's been a regular viewer of the program, it gives every conference a chance to represent. If you're mad, then win your conference and you're in. Simple.
Most of the time, you're recruiting against your opponents in the conference. You have every opportunity to know exactly what it takes to win the conference, because you know your opponents year in, year out. Go win your conference. Go out, work them in the recruiting trail, go out, work them in the offseason, go win your conference.
I'd like to see Final Four neutral site, 2 semifinals at a neutral site. Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh,
but I mean, I'll tell you, from a guy that put on some football games at a neutral site, I used to do the First Down Classic in Platte City, Missouri. And then, I did a neutral site for 4 or 5 years there. And all the things that you have to pull together for a neutral site game, and that was one I had months to plan for. Man, it's tough. And to know you have a week, I mean, and you don't know where the teams are, where your semifinal matchup's going to be. You know, I'd love to see it, but like, you're going to need
days to prepare for that. No.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
I do love the idea though of going back to the VSN like kickoff classic type thing, and get, like you just said, Jason, getting these great conferences, some like, East and West type love of these teams playing each other, outside their conference. I think it's a great idea if we ever pull that thing off, man. You had great experience in that, but I love seeing like Montana Tech and Georgetown play. I thought it was awesome. Lindsey Wilson and Texas Wesleyan. That was great stuff. I think it's awesome. I want to continue. Go ahead.
I'm going to call out a commenter. We said nope, conference representation, loser logic, participation, metal vibes, metal, by the way. So, and also loser logic would be thinking you can lose 2 games and that you should just make the postseason. Right. That's loser logic. Winner logic is we're going to win all of our games and win our conference. That's how we'll make it to the postseason. If we don't win our conference and we don't make the postseason, then I guess we weren't supposed to be there because we lost that game. That's winner's logic right there. So I'm sorry. I'm over it. You talk about top conferences. Yeah, it's just like the message board all over. You talked about top conferences. Who's the bottom?
I think we'll find out this weekend.
Yeah, I think we'll get some answers this week. I mean, it's obvious based on what commenters have said. They want me to say the Appalachian Athletic Conference. They want me to see the KCAC Bissell, and they want me to say the Sun Conference. I want to see how teams compete this weekend. I've never seen Pikeville play Baker. I don't know what will happen in that game. I've seen some people say, yeah, Pikeville's going to give up 60 and lose. But what if they don't? What if they come in? I mean, I remember Louisiana Christian went into Baker last year and challenged those guys super hard for the first half, and then Baker just blew them out in the third quarter. We could see the same thing again, this year. Or you could see one of those teams go on the road and pick up a victory. and sadly, no matter what Ottawa, Arizona does this weekend, the Sooner Athletic Conference is in no-win situation, because people will say, well, Ottawa went to Friends, they were in the KCAC, so I mean, of course they're going to win that game. And then if Ottawa then has to go and play Texas Wesleyan again in the second round, well, see, they just matched up with their conference again. We'll never know. Sorry,
that's what it is.
You know who what I care about, who wins the national championship. Next week, we'll break that down a bit more. I don't want to give any predictions on who I think's going to win the national championship until I see second round matchups, because that's going to tell me a little bit more about how some regional things could play out. If there's a second round matchup where they put Kaiser at St. Thomas, and I hope to God they don't do that, that would change my championship pick. If St. Thomas is able to avoid Kaiser for a while and some people get upset, that's a good St. Thomas team down there. It's a good Kaiser team down there. And we haven't said much about Indiana Wesleyan, who blew through every NAIA opponent they played this year. And everybody already knows, I think the Frontier Conference is a really strong conference, and Montana Western has got some dudes up there. So, and there's 5 other teams I could talk about. I mean, it's going to be great. It's
time for Grandview too, Jason. We watched them yesterday. I think they're a great football team, but it's time for them to make some noise in the postseason. They've not. I don't think they've reached their potential the last couple of years of what they've done in the regular season. They've got to continue the postseason. Again, they're going to a week to heal up and get ready to go. But I think that's a great football team. Them, Indiana Wesleyan, the 2 Florida schools, I think are fantastic. Really, really good.
I do too. We should wrap things up. We've done this for 2 hours. We're getting the same comments over and over again by like some of the same people. Just scrolling through quick to see if there was anything that we missed in 2 hours worth of chat that was thrown at us. Nah, don't have that. Just scrolling. Yeah. GPAC teams 22-5 over the last 5 years versus non-GPAC teams. Yeah, they have. We make it a championship game. You win championships. Yeah, you can run that record up for sure. I'm sure I've got probably half of NAI fans very mad at me right now. Some of them might like me. Most of them might hate me. I don't care. So the funny thing is, and Pat and I will say this, you can knock on our predictions. You can call us Dumb and Dumber. That's fine. We actually think that's pretty comical. Actually, that's
my favorite movies of all time.
It's a great movie. We'll just quote it. Next year we'll just do a live viewing of Dumb and Dumber, because I bet you the stream will work.
Tell you what, one of the funniest things of all time is when I let my 9-year-old, he's 11 now, at 9 years old, get to watch Dumb and Dumber. It was a special night. And he's like, Dad, you love this movie? I go, I love this movie.
This is a great movie.
Enjoy it.
So yeah, the comments, I don't care. When Pat and I started doing this podcast over a year ago, we said, hey man, if 5 people watch, I don't care. I just like talking to Pat about NAI football. Looks like we had decent viewership tonight. I appreciate everybody that has hung around for 2 hours. Holy cow.
Absolutely. What do you get down to, Jason? This podcast is for us, We do it for the fans, but yes, we enjoy it. It's something we would talk about anyway. So we just have to let everybody hop on and watch our discussion.
If we came out next week in orange and blue leisure suits,
can we find them? And one, here's the second part. Can we find
size? Size.
Those that don't know Jason and I, we were large human beings. We're tall and large.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would not be easy.
There's nothing that fits me well.
Light blue and melon orange leisure suits.
They sell leisure suits in the big and tall section.
Yeah, right. Just right in that cusp of that big and tall.
And even the big and tall stuff, it's like, oh no, this is for a guy that's actually big and tall, not just kind of tall and fat. Like these don't fit. Oh man,
I did go to a big and tall one time. I did, just because I wanted a certain jacket I saw, and it's like, well, you're not quite our. I go, thank you, that made my day. It's like, you're on the small end of the big and tall. It's like, oh, that's good. It's good. I am almost 6'3", so I guess I'm somewhat tall.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
I love it. Hey, again, I do want to thank everybody that checked out the show tonight. I'm sure a bunch of people dropped off. I certainly appreciate everybody that participated in the chat, asked us questions. Whether you were respectful or not about it, that's yet to be seen. I don't care one way or another. I should probably ban people in the chat, but yeah, what fun is that? I like to argue with people sometimes, Pat, and
I certainly enjoy it. So
Well, and I don't want to come across as egotistical when I say this, but I know this stuff. I know the NAIA system. I've seen so many games this year. Like I know it. Maybe I don't articulate it right sometimes, but at the end of the day, like my NAIA football is like my sister-in-law asked me earlier today. It's like, oh, did you see BYU lost yesterday? I'm like, I have no idea. Actually, I didn't watch a second of Division I football yesterday. I watched 3 NAIA games and worked on 3 articles, and here we are.
I was in a hotel last night in literally Tennessee and Tennessee and who the SEC game? Oh, Georgia. They were on, and I'm watching Montana Tech and Carroll.
Yeah,
in my hotel room. So there you go.
It's just easier that way.
Sure.
Buddy, this was good. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
It gets easier for us here on out because we got 4 games to watch. You know, we got 8 games to watch, and then 4, and then 2, and then 1. I mean, we're no longer having to watch 46 games a week and see what's happening here. So this is a fun time of year for us. Week in, week out will get better. We'll be back next week, usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Pat, your final thoughts before we
excited about getting a deep dive in these games, like you said, Jason. Really sitting there and taking a lot of time and diagnosing what we're watching, and looking forward to hopefully the all 22 through huddle, which has been a wonderful game changer for us. Looking forward to getting really detailed and watching these games closely. Looking forward to it. It'll be great.
Yeah, I am too. Again, I appreciate all the viewers checking out the show tonight. Tremendous audience. Tremendous audience. I hear probably the best NAIA football audience in the country. That's what I'm hearing. That's what they're saying out there, Pat. Anyway. Thank you, everybody, for Pat Donley. I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. We're back next week. You guys have a great one, and go on out there and enjoy some NAIA football.